So let's go share screen. I'm gonna go here. Okay, so all right, so hopefully this recording. So this is just a review using some images that could possibly show up on the test, just to give you an idea of how things would look. So this is a nice model, anterior view of the heart. So make sure you can pick out structures and layers and vessels. So let's just start over here. This would be your superior vena cava. This would be your brachiocephalic veins, right and left, that flow into that superior vena cava. This would be the aorta. Technically, this is the ascending aorta. That's the arch. And then it goes into the descending aorta. But yeah, probably I'm just going to be asking aorta on this. That would be your brachiocephalic trunk, that first big branch off the aorta. That would be your left common carotid, and that would be your left subclavian. This would be your pulmonary trunk, which is technically an artery, even though they colored it in blue, showing you that it has deoxygenated blood in it. And then that's going to branch into pulmonary arteries that you can't really see that great here. Oh, by the way, that's your little ligamentum arteriosum. They made it really nice on this model. This would be your right auricle, which is the ear-like flap. I mean, technically it's the right atrium. If you open that up, it's the right atrium inside, and this is the left auricle. And then don't forget you got your right and your left coronary arteries that come off of this aorta that feed the heart. And then this one going down the front, that's the one they used to call the widow maker. That's a slang. Uh, Most emergency room doctors call it the left anterior descending. I like to go with what's in your book, which is the anterior interventricular, because it names where it's at. So anterior interventricular, that's an important one. Let's look at the opened up heart now. So you can see that right coronary artery coming off of there, off of that aorta, and you can't really see the left one coming off. But this, they have this same model, it's just opened up. So now you can see inside the right atrium. You can see inside the right ventricle. You can see inside the left atrium and the left ventricle. And this, there's your anterior interventricular artery. So that would be right above your septum. So that's your interventricular septum. What's nice, I even drew the Purkinje fibers. See the little Purkinje fibers here? That would be your apex of the heart. So see how thick the wall of the left ventricle is? So that's the myocardium. Endocardium is the shiny stuff on the inside. This is endocardium. There's a valve, and look what it's going to, the pulmonary trunk. So that's your pulmonary valve. And you can't really see the aortic valve because it's behind that. This is a valve, and that's a valve. It's kind of torn up on this model. It doesn't look that great. But this would be your right AV valve, and that would be your left AV valve. You can call this a tricuspid. You can call that the bicuspid. You can also call this the mitral valve. Okay. That's a pig heart, just so you can see. Now it's cut, and folded open. So this, you can see how thick that is? That's your left ventricle, and this would be your right ventricle because it's not nearly as thick of a wall over here. Okay, there's your apex, there's your interventricular septum, and you can see a little bit of the valve here. And you can almost see the chordae tendonae. Remember the little strings, the little cords that look like tendons that connect the valves to the papillary muscles? Pretty good little papillary muscle there. That's about all I would show on this. Remember, this will fold over. So this is still your left ventricle. It's just cut open and flopped over to the side, right? Because look how thick that is. So you know that's the left side, and you know that's the right side. So when this close up like a clamshell, you know, then you can see, oh yeah, this is part of that. Okay. So that would be epicardium on the outside. Myocardium is a muscle, and endocardium would be on the inside. I threw this on there just because I found a good one. That's a monocyte. So remember, it has a really good kidney-shaped nucleus. Really nice. There's red blood cells. And then I'm not too crazy about this. So this is fine. I pointed this, that's a neutrophil. I don't know if they're trying to show us a monocyte or if that's just an immature lymphocyte there. So since it's kind of, it's kind of not classic, I wouldn't do that. That looks like a basophil to me, but remember, we're probably not going to do basophils. These are platelets, so these are really nice. Remember, those are the same thing as thrombocytes. And so that's little pieces that break off of a megakaryocyte or megakaryoblast. And you can see the way the red blood cells look like little donuts if they catch the light just right. That's because they have no nucleus. But on this the only thing fair game on a slide like this, I would do neutrophil is fine. It looks like it's more than one nucleus, but it's not. So it looks kind of lobular. But the neutrophil is pretty classic on this one. Red blood cells are pretty classic. And the thrombocytes are pretty classic. This, I'll probably try to find a little better picture, but it's not bad. That's cardiac muscle, and you can see the intercalated disc. That's the main thing I'm trying to show you. I'm not going to point at a nucleus, don't worry. And I think this is just trying to show you the shape, the branching of a cell. But the intercalated disc are everywhere. That's mainly what I would be pointing at on a cardiac muscle slide. You can't really see, you're not zoomed in, so you can't really see the thousands and thousands and thousands of striations that would be running in this direction also. So really all you can see here are the intercalated disc, and that has your, little gap junctions can be in there. I like this view. This is the posterior of a heart. I think I have it without all those numbers on there. So really, you're looking at the back of the heart because the fat, it makes a T. So it looks like a T. So remember, the heart has its own little blood supply. So that is the way the blood goes back into the right atrium. So this is on the back of the heart. And so it's emptying into the right atrium. You just can't really see it. I don't like this view, so it's no way I'm going to point at the inferior and the superior vena cava on this. But this is nice, like a bonus. See this artery? I could go posterior interventricular artery, because that's an important one. So about the only two that are descending like that that would be fair game would be the anterior interventricular artery and the posterior interventricular artery. Don't confuse it with the anterior. That's your anterior interventricular artery. So this is the front. Okay, so the front looks quite different than the back. So here's the back. Okay, and so there's your coronary sinus. Don't call it carotid. Carotid's in your neck, all right? So, and carotid is an artery. This is a vein, basically, and it's emptying back into your right atrium. So coronary sinus. Okay. All right. So this is just a close-up view of some of these vessels. It's kind of nice. There's my superior vena cava. So of course you got the right and you have the left. brachiocephalic veins. Remember, you only have one brachiocephalic trunk or artery, but you have two brachiocephalic veins. Don't forget, veins are bringing blood in, arteries are bringing blood away, out from the heart. Okay, that would be your internal jugular vein, right? And they're not showing an external on this side. I don't like the way you can see it. Well, you can see a little bit of it there. But the external is very superficial. It's actually outside that sternocleidomastoid muscle. This would be your left common carotid. And of course, it's going to split up here into your internal and external carotids. Okay, so then you're going to go underneath the clavicle here. So that's going to be subclavian right there. Let's see. Okay, there's your aorta. This is just a big model that you look up close. I kind of like it because you can see the papillary muscles really nice. And then these would be your chordae tendineae, right? And that's your valve. So you know this is the right side of the heart because this is thin, and this is the left side of the heart because this is thick. Okay, and so there's endocardium, myocardium. The outside would be epicardium. So here's your two atria, and notice that you can't see the pulmonary valve. That's been taken off of this model, you know, when you opened it up. But you can really see the aortic valve really nice when you have it this far open. Okay, and another thing, just so you'll know, see these two little green things? They're saying that's your SA node and that's your AV node. And this is nice because you can see the little scar that's left behind when the foramen ovale has closed, you know, so this would be an adult. And that's the fossa ovalis. That looks like the little entrance of that coronary sinus. So that's emptying in. So think you got blood coming in from the superior vena cava, the inferior vena cava, and then the coronary sinus. That's all filling this right atrium up with deoxygenated blood. And then that blood would go through this valve into this right ventricle, and then it would go, well, you can't see it, but it go through the pulmonary valve, which is not on here, into the pulmonary trunk. Then it would come back through pulmonary veins. It's not really showing those on the outside. And the oxygenated blood would fill up your left atrium. Then you'd go through the left AV valve into the left ventricle. And then when you did systole, this blood that's down here would go out the aortic valve and into the aorta. So hopefully that makes sense. And this is just a different model, but it's the same thing. So there's your right atrium, there's your right AV valve, right ventricle. But now that's your pulmonary valve. So you can see this model's not opened up as much as that other one was because you can see the pulmonary trunk out front. So the aortic valve would be buried behind here. Okay. And there's your left atrium. You can see where some of the pulmonary veins are coming into there. Don't forget you got them coming from the other side too, from the lung. But they're emptying that oxygenated blood into this left atrium. It goes through the left AV valve into the left ventricle, and then that's going to go out the aorta. Got to go through the aortic valve first, don't forget. Okay. And this, I kind of like this because it's showing you the vessels a little better. These three big branches off of the arch of the aorta, that's your brachiocephalic trunk. So see the way that branches into your right common carotid? And then that right there would be your right subclavian. So you got right common carotid or right subclavian, where this would be your left common carotid, and this would be your left subclavian. Does that make sense now? Okay, but that brachiocephalic trunk is not very long in real life. And then here's a board model. This is nice for pointing at stuff like radial artery, ulnar artery. Here's your brachial artery. That's fine. We're a little too far away to see. Well, you know, these are going to be your jugular veins here, your internals. So a little far away to point at that. But your vena cava, your inferior vena cava, I guess you could point at that. And there's your descending abdominal aorta. You could point at that. Technically, remember after you go, so this is an artery, it just keeps getting renamed. So your subclavian, then your axillary, then your brachial, right? And they got the hand twisted around, so there's no way I'm going to do radial and ulnar over here. But here in the anatomical position, yeah, that's fine. Then going down here, this is your femoral. They kind of got the leg turned so you can see it goes behind the knee and becomes the popliteal. And then that's going to end up, you know, branching into your tibials, but I wouldn't point that there. But this is kind of nice. So that's your great saphenous vein. And it runs with that saphenous nerve. And this is the one that they'll take a piece of or either branch off of this whenever they're doing a bypass in the heart. So this is kind of nice. So here's your aorta, right? And then it's going to branch into your iliacs. You got your right and your left common iliacs. And then they didn't show much of it, but these would be your internal iliacs right here. And then going down here would be your external iliacs. Now, they didn't show the little inguinal ligament that comes across here, but once you pass that inguinal ligament, then you would, you know, down low, you would call it a femoral. It becomes your femoral artery. Okay. It looks like a gonadal, and a gonadal, I probably got better pictures of those. You can see the renals here. You can see the celiac trunk, but we're zoomed way out. I doubt I'd point at that there. You can see that really nice. That looks like your pulmonary valve. Okay. But let's get some close-ups. All right, so there's your same pulmonary valve. This is nice for your internal jugular vein and your left. Well, that's a left one, and then your left common carotid is pretty nice. Brachiocephalic's pretty nice. Yeah, it's a little blurry. I'm not crazy about that picture. And this is just showing you a little closer up, showing you that saphenous, right? Okay. This your larynx model. It's okay. You're looking at the front of it. This is the hyoid bone. It's not showing up that great, but this back here, that would be your epiglottis. Remember, that keeps the food from going down your trachea, you know, hopefully. This would be your Adam's apple. Don't say Adam's apple. You know, this point where it's poking out. That's the laryngeal prominence or laryngeal prominence, however you want to say it. Just spell it right. And this is your thyroid cartilage. So your thyroid cartilage is the front of it, where it's this kind of like this crest or this bump. That's your laryngeal prominence. This would be your cricoid cartilage. And don't forget, it goes all the way around the back too. And then that would be your trachea. So let's see if we got a trachea. Oh yeah, there's trachea. Oh, this is really nice. And so these are tracheal rings. So you're looking at the front, where if you look on the back, that's where, you know, these things just make horseshoes. They don't connect. So that would be your trachealis muscle would be on the posterior of this. I could ask a question about that, or if I could find a model, I could point at it. These are just your bronchi, right? Oh, sorry, that's the right one. And that's a left one. So those are primary bronchi. Bronchus is singular. And then remember, you got two lobes on your left, so you got two secondary bronchi, and you got three lobes on the right, so you got secondary bronchi over here that correspond with those. And then you go into tertiary bronchi. So you got primary, secondary, tertiary bronchi. It's not, I don't like the way they did it here, but this would be carina, you know, the little bikini shaped piece of cartilage that's at the junction, and that's a good landmark when you're looking at an x-ray. Carina. Make sure you spell it right. on a lung, this is just off of one of our models. If I put the pointer up here, that would be the apex. If I put it on this groove, that would be the horizontal groove. If I put it on that groove, that would be the, or sorry, horizontal fissure. Don't call it a groove. I would call it a groove. You would say, what groove is this? You would go, horizontal fissure. What groove is this? You go, oblique fissure. Now, what surface is all this right out here that would be against the ribs? See, they took the ribs off of here. That would be costal surface. Costal just means ribs, basically. That muscle, that's your diaphragm. It's just not showing up that great. And then, so this surface would be your basilar surface or your diaphragmatic surface. Okay. I guess you could just say basal surface, it'd be fine. There's your little cardiac notch on that mediastinal surface. Remember, mediastinum is this space. If I said, what membrane, what's the shiny stuff on the lung itself? What's the membrane? Pay attention to the questions. Then you go, oh, that's my visceral pleural membrane. Can't see the parietal pleural here because it's on the underside of, this rib, this chest plate that they took off of here. All right. So everybody's cool with that? You can see the brachiocephalic veins right there. Kind of nice. All right. Remember, it's talking about the arteries that branched off of the descending aorta once you got below the diaphragm. So this is a really good picture. So there's your diaphragm. So the first thing you're going to have is going to be your celiac trunk that's going to split into 3 different vessels. I wouldn't ask you the 3. I wouldn't point at them. But just know one goes to your spleen, one goes to your stomach. That's be the gastric. The spleen would be the splenic. The one that goes to the liver would be the hepatic. Then that, it's cut off, so you can't see what it's feeding, but it would be feeding all these upper intestines. So that's superior mesenteric. And then these would be your renals, your renal arteries. These would be your gonadals that would be going to either testes or ovaries. And this would be your inferior mesenteric. That's your superior mesenteric. This is your inferior mesenteric. They come off the front. And that would go to your intestinal, some of your intestines, but lower down. And then there's your good split. That's your common iliacs. There's your internal iliacs, and these would be your external iliacs. So I think I got a different view of this, and you can kind of see some of the stuff. So there's your celiac trunk with its 3 branches. Remember, I wouldn't ask you which one's what, but splenic, gastric, hepatic. Then there's your that's your superior mesenteric. There's your renals, left and right renals. I presume these are your gonadals. I wouldn't do it on this one. There's your inferior mesenteric. And then there's your common iliacs. And there's the internal iliac, external iliac. So this is nice. See that inguinal ligament that's coming across there? So if you're on this side of it, this vessel will be your external iliac. If you go 1 inch below there, now you're on this side of that ligament, that's now called your femoral. So just be careful with that, especially you guys going to med school and PA school. They're going to ask you that on a cadaver. They'll put a pin right here and ask you what vessel that is, and then they'll put a pin right there and ask you what vessel that is. Even though it's the same darn vessel, it's got 2 different names once you pass this inguinal ligament. It's kind of nice. I got this laminate somewhere without quite so many words on it, but they cut the vena cava out. The inferior vena cava is gone. All of this is gone. The heart's gone. This is the superior vena cava. But this is just showing you the thoracic duct. It's really nice. I call that the thoracic duct, and I call that little bitty piece the left lymphatic. Notice the way they labeled it thoracic? That's because once upon a time they called the whole thing the thoracic duct. Once upon a time they called the whole thing the left lymphatic duct. For a while they called this the thoracic and that the left lymphatic. And I still do that because you can't see it, but there's a right lymphatic over here. And remember, those lymphatic ducts empty into your subclavian veins. This would be the cisterna chyli. Looks like a little chili pepper. It's just a little widened, expanded area at the base of your thoracic duct. And I like this too, because it's your azygous vein. And so you can see it really well because they got rid of the vena cava that would be in the way here. But that's, you can see where this stuff is draining from this body wall into that. So if I run out of stuff to point at, I can point at that because it's really nice azygous vein. And I think that's it. I mean, there's more stuff we could put, but you get the idea. So anyway, I'm going to go stop share. I'm going to go end meeting. And then I'll put this up on the site for you. Okay.